Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Power Brunch. My name is Joanna, and I will be hosting today's Power Brunch. We will be speaking to Elizabeth Beck today. We're just waiting for her to log on, so just give us a few minutes. Planned Parenthood. When I was 21, I found out I was pregnant. Although I grew up in a Catholic Latinx household, I knew that I didn't want to follow through with my pregnancy. I decided to go to Planned Parenthood to receive an abortion. At the time, I was a part-time student and bank teller. Because of my schedule, I had to take time off of work and go back to the clinic twice because of unnecessary sonogram. Although I faced adversity such as financial barriers, I was able to get the healthcare I needed thanks to Planned Parenthood. Since then, I have become a volunteer and healthcare advocate for the last 2 years. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Do you have your coffee ready?
Yes, definitely.
Good, good, good.
How about you?
I'm right here. I don't leave home without it.
So welcome to our Power Brunch. I'm going to do a quick introduction of myself, and then you can introduce yourself as well. My name is Joanna. My pronouns are she, her, ella. I am a volunteer with the DFW area and former patient of Planned Parenthood. When I was 21, I found out I was pregnant. Although I grew up in a Catholic Latinx household, I knew that I didn't want to follow through with my pregnancy. I decided to go to Planned Parenthood to receive an abortion. At the time, I was a part-time student and bank teller. Because of my schedule, I had to take time off of work and go back to the clinic twice because of unnecessary sonogram. Although I faced adversity such as financial barriers, I was able to get the healthcare I needed thanks to Planned Parenthood. Since then, I have become a volunteer and healthcare advocate for the last 2 years. Elizabeth, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Elizabeth Beck. I am your next state representative for House District 97. Thank you so much for having me out today. One of the reasons that I am running and one of the big reasons that propelled me into politics was my work with Planned Parenthood. And so I'm so excited and so honored to have the endorsement of Planned Parenthood Texas Votes, but also be here today having this discussion with you so that we can make sure that we've got someone down in Austin from House District 97 that is going to fight for all of the services that Planned Parenthood provides to our community.
As a constituent of District 97, I'm so thankful that you are supportive of Planned Parenthood. What is giving you power today? What is giving you the energy to take today on and win the race?
You, right? People like you are what give me the power and the energy every day. Because I wake up and I think about stories like yours and where you would be but for organizations like Planned Parenthood. And I think about what our Republican-led legislature has done to destroy our attempt to destroy that organization. And it is so important, not just for access to abortion care, but for a myriad of health, reproductive and sexual health needs for Texans, both male and female, across the state. And so it's hearing stories like yours, knowing what an impact this organization makes in our community, and knowing what a threat it is under every day with our current leadership that keep me going.
Yes, I definitely agree. We need more representatives with your mindset and who will fight for our access to healthcare. Why do you support Planned Parenthood? Do you have any personal experiences that you could share with us?
Sure. So I used Planned Parenthood as a teenager. I moved out of my parents' house when I was 17 and did not have health insurance. And so Planned Parenthood was how I was able to get the health care that I needed at a reduced price. But what really propelled me to get involved with particularly the reproductive justice movement was my daughter. She was in kindergarten during the 2012 election. And we had a discussion about why we were voting for President Barack Obama. And I put it as simply as I could, in terms for a 5-year-old. And one of the things was women should be able to do what they want with their bodies. And we were watching the election night returns, and initially Obama was down. And she looked at me with these tears in her eyes, this true terror. And she said, "Oh my God, they're going to tell us what to do with our bodies." And my initial reaction as a mother was to think, "Oh, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have said that to her. It scared her." But then I realized that that's the reaction we should all have to someone telling us what we can and can't do with our bodies. We've just become desensitized to it because we've become accustomed to it. It's a way of life here in Texas. And so I saw that fear in her eyes and was determined that she would never have to experience that again. And so I started fundraising for Planned Parenthood and then joined the Planned Parenthood board. And now I'm running to make sure that we keep that mission going.
I'm sure they're really proud of you.
Some days. It depends on the day.
What are your priorities if elected in terms of protecting reproductive health care for all Texans?
So we have got to start rolling back all of the red tape that is meant to make seeking access to a safe and legal abortion in Texas for young women. And it starts with sonogram laws, heartbeat laws, right? 24-hour waiting periods, counseling services. All of those are meant to prolong the process and to make it more arduous for anyone seeking that care. We also have to make sure that our care is more inclusive and that Texans have access to the reproductive health care that they need, whether that be access to birth control and contraceptives, STD testing, right? Like that's something that improves the overall health of our community. And so I want to make sure that we are stopping the attacks on organizations like Planned Parenthood simply because they're abortion providers, because we are dismantling an ability for healthcare across the state when we do that. And so that has to stop. We have to stop rolling back the attacks on funding, on cities' abilities to coordinate and to contract with organizations like Planned Parenthood. Those are absolutely top priority, and to make sure that we get the correct funding back for our Healthy Women's program, because we saw that when Planned Parenthood was taken out of that program, we saw the efficacy of that drop significantly to almost zero. And so we've got to get that back up and running so that women across the state can have access to cancer, breast cancer and cervical cancer screening.
Yes, one of the reason it's so important for me to have access to healthcare, and in my situation, was the fact that the Planned Parenthood in our district was literally 15 minutes away, and because of the laws implemented, I had to go back twice for a sonogram. And if I didn't have that direct access to a Planned Parenthood who offered abortion consultations, I don't think I would be able to have had my abortion. So I really think it's important that we have clinics that are available to all communities. And we saw earlier this year that abortion in Texas was attacked because of Greg Abbott during a pandemic. And many women were forced to even go out of state just to get health care.
Yeah, it has been incredibly unfortunate to watch our leadership use a true crisis in this state to take shots at abortion access, but also just to make it a political process, right? This is about Texans staying healthy and staying safe and getting back to work. This is not the time to to capitalize on this crisis to inflict further damage on women across the state.
Texas has one of the highest uninsured rates in the nation. As state rep, how would you fight to protect and expand access to Medicaid?
So first and foremost, we have got to take those federal dollars to expand Medicaid access. You know, if I said, if you give me $1, I'll give you 9 back. I don't know anyone that would not take you up on that offer except the Texas legislature when it comes to Medicaid funding. And it's not because we don't have the money in our coffers. It's because of the name of that particular bill, and it's partisan. And so that's the first thing we have to do, is expand access to our most needy populations. And then we have to talk about once they have that access, once we have them in programs like Medicaid or CHIP, what are we doing to facilitate them to continue that care? We have monthly reporting or application requirements. There's enormous red tape in the state. And if you're a single mom working 1 or maybe 2 jobs, because we know in Texas that our minimum wage does not pay, it does not provide a living wage for Texans. So if you're working 1 or 2 jobs and you're juggling now, you're also a teacher because, you know, our kids are at home learning. You don't necessarily have the time to gather the documents and go back in to make sure that your children have access to healthcare. So we have got to remove a lot of that red tape that prevents us from continuing that care once they're on it.
Planned Parenthood health centers also give non-judgmental care to the LGBTQ plus community, including abortion and gender-affirming care. What will you do to protect and expand LGBTQ plus rights as state rep?
So first and foremost, we have to talk about a non-discrimination bill, a blanket non-discrimination bill, to make sure that that every Texan, including those in the LGBTQ community, enjoy the same access and the same privileges as every other person in this state. So that is very important to the overall quality of life for our LGBTQ community. And when it comes to healthcare, we have to make sure that people have access to the care that they need, whether that be PrEP for the prevention of HIV/AIDS, if that is a hormone treatment, replacement therapy for those in our trans community that need that support. And there's also the emotional support that comes with all of that, with the discrimination. We know that our trans community is more likely to commit suicide than the general population or the rest of the population. So we have to address that as well. And those are all things that Planned Parenthood can do if they are given the ability to do so and the funding to do so.
Yes, one of the reasons I directly went to Planned Parenthood when I decided to have an abortion was because I knew they offered non-judgmental health care, and that's what I needed, and that's what everybody needs.
Right.
As a do you have any other things you would like to implement as representative?
You know, there's a big push. We've got to talk about medically accurate sex education in the state, and make sure that all of our kids have access to that. And one of the programs that Planned Parenthood does that is one of my favorites is the acting troupe that goes and dialogues what consent looks like and what healthy relationships look like. That is so important to the overall health of our youth. And it's a program that a lot of people don't necessarily hear about. But imagine someone coming to your school and talking to you about what an abusive relationship looks like and how you can get out of that and what consent looks like. And we have to make sure that that our adolescents, our teenagers have access to that type of information and education so that they can be as healthy as possible, both physically and emotionally.
Yes, growing up in a Catholic household, I definitely grew up without the option of birth control or even necessarily being spoken to about the birds and the bees. So I really think it's important to create that open conversation within the Latinx communities and other communities who lack that education.
Right. If the truth is that whether you get it at home or not, it is it's a natural part of life, right? None of us would be here but for that process. So it's really important that people that don't have access to that at home, for whatever reason, have a place that they feel comfortable to go and get that.
Yes, I totally agree. What other what other things in your past life? Because I know you were in the military and a lawyer as well. How did that bring you to run for office?
As a lawyer, I get to fight for Texans, and I see how important that is. That Texans have someone that is willing to stand up and hold people accountable or fight for them when they're in their most vulnerable state. And we need to have someone in Austin that's willing to do that, that's willing to stand up and fight for Texans when they need it the most, right? Because it's typically not a great day when someone needs a lawyer. And so we have to make sure that there's someone down there that's making sure that when Texans are down, when Texans needs help, there's someone advocating for them. And that, being a lawyer taught me that fight. And being in the military literally taught me how to fight. But it also taught me the importance of leadership and what that means. And how to do that effectively. And so, I spent 8.5 years in the Army Reserves and a year of that deployed in Iraq. And I saw firsthand what real leadership looks like and how important it is to the success of a mission or of a group of people. And I can tell you that to be a good leader, that you have to be willing to get out in front and you have to be willing to get out and lead. And we don't have that in Austin, representing us in House District 97. We have got, we need someone that's willing to get out there and lead and to stand in front and to challenge those policies and laws that are harmful to Texans.
Yes, I definitely agree. I'm sure your daughters are really proud of you. How do they feel about you running for Texas Rep?
When I told them, my oldest response was, "It's about time, Mom." And so that was a very telling response to me. I think that they certainly, they have their days where, they roll their eyes and they're like, do we have, do I have to go? Or, I don't want to. And we let them take it as they will and participate the way they want to. But it's really been great to see this process through their eyes. And, where I thought they just, they went along for Mom and, were proud, but, from a distance. The other day we were having a conversation and I learned that they regularly do a search on the internet to see, what info has come out about Mom or what article, and that let me know, that they really are part of this and they really are excited. And when you ask them why Mom, they'll tell you that I fight for them and I fight for equality. I have since they were little. They've come with me to women's marches or Planned Parenthood rallies, and they're ready to be that change, and they recognize that their mom's the one to do that.
We definitely need more women like you in Austin, and I look forward to seeing how it all goes down in November. What can people do watching now do to support your campaign?
So there's a lot that you can do depending on what you've got available to you. Campaigns are not cheap, so donations are always really appreciated, and no dollar amount is too small or too big. So if you have the ability to make a contribution to the campaign, I would invite you, I would be very appreciative if you could do that. And if that's not where you are right now, because we know that many Texans are suffering because of the hit our economy has taken, you can volunteer, and we will absolutely take your time. We have a very aggressive field program. We are writing postcards, we are phone banking, and we are text banking, and I would absolutely love to have anyone join us in that effort. If you want to do either, whether that's donate or phone bank, you can sign up on my website. It's elizabeth4texas.com, and we can get you plugged in. And then also tell your friends, tell your neighbors, talk to them about the election. Make sure that they are registered to vote. Make sure they understand the importance of their vote in November, because no longer are the days when Texans go, well, I didn't think my vote counted. Every vote counts, and every vote is going to count November 3rd for not just my race, but other state house races, the presidential race, our Senate. We've got some statewide ballots coming up. So make sure your friends and family are registered. Make them check. If they are not, get them registered, and make sure that they get out to vote in November.
Before we let everybody go, the link is in our bio to update your registration information, and registration deadline is Monday, October 5th, and election day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for taking time out of your day to hang out with us.
Of course, I loved it. I always love hanging out with my Planned Parenthood crew. So I really appreciate you inviting me out today.
Well, you have a great rest of your day. I'm sure you're really busy.
You too. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.